have the last 2 times at Penn State, but yet we go right out and do it. We win the toss, we defer. Penn State gets the ball first. We can't stop them. We almost stop them, but they get some. They break free. They drive downfield. Thankfully, because of their ineptness, they only kicked a field goal. But then, why would you do that? Why wouldn't we get the ball first and have some creative play calling to try to get it? And if you're going to defer and get the ball and give them the ball, well, if you can't stop them, then when we do get the ball, my heavens, that is an incredibly important possession. We have to get a drive going. But instead, we go 3 and out with bad play calling and then give them the ball right back, and they drive right down the field again. And again, so we end the first quarter. I think it was the largest disparity of offensive play calls from one team. It was like 29 offensive plays for Penn State and 3 or 4 for Michigan in the entire first quarter. It simply can't happen, and I again blame game planning and coaching. That is really a legitimate complaint. The next one is probably the one that is the most frustrating for Wolverine fans. Michigan had a game plan, and they stuck to it, and it worked. So a lot of people would say, "Hey, why are you complaining? You shouldn't complain." I get that argument, but the series right before halftime in the second quarter, this is another just mind-numbing series where Michigan has now dodged the bullet and they've seized momentum. They are up 7-3. They're driving. 2 minutes left in the second quarter before halftime. They get down to the Penn State 40. It's 4th and 2, and they do the same play call and basically gift Penn State 3 points and then complete shift in momentum before halftime. This is what drives Wolverine fans crazy. Yes, I understand this play call worked earlier in the game, and it helped the Wolverines get out of their offensive funk and helped fuel our touchdown drive early in the second quarter. But this was a totally different game management scenario. We now have the lead, and we have the momentum. What's even crazier than the horrible play call, which was so obvious that even a bad defense would have been able to stop it, is the complete lack of situational awareness on the part of the coaching staff. No one has the sense to stop and say, wait a minute, if we don't get this, we're setting Penn State up at their own 40 to 45-yard line with 1:35 left in the half. We'll be giving them the last possession before halftime. We'll be giving them the momentum right before halftime. Even if they don't score, and more than likely they will, with a couple of positive plays, they'll be in field goal range. I mean, wait, isn't this the same dumb mistake that we made earlier this season at Wisconsin and at Nebraska and somehow just got lucky and had to gut out wins? Shucks, we better call a timeout and think about this carefully. Oh, by the way, if you look at the replay, a simple quarterback bootleg would have probably gone for a touchdown or at least 20 to 30 yards. There was absolutely nobody on the entire left side of the field. Even Cade McNamara, who's not a running quarterback, could have easily gotten a first down, probably gotten 20 to 30 yards, maybe scored. And that quarterback bootleg play call was perfectly set up by previous play calls in the game. But instead, no, Michigan does the same student body right off tackle. The play completely blows up. Now Penn State has the momentum. They get the ball back, and one play, and 15 seconds later, Penn State's at the Michigan 25-yard line with enough time for 6 to 8 more offensive plays before halftime. This is an embarrassing display of coaching and an embarrassing display of situational awareness by Harbaugh and the staff. This also leads me to believe, if we didn't have enough evidence, that Harbaugh runs things pretty autocratically within the Michigan football program. Otherwise, I would think there must have been someone on the offensive coaching staff screaming to not call that play on 4th and 2 right before halftime. That the only thing that saved us was our number one pass rush edge defenders, who caused a strip sack and forced Penn State to kick a field goal. So it was 7-6 at halftime. But nonetheless, we again go into halftime completely without the momentum. Lost the momentum. The crowd's back into it when we had just had it a few minutes earlier. This was a chance to put them away. Classic Wolverine football. We don't put people away when we have the chance on the road. And then that leads me to the second, however. Isn't this the same cultural coaching that has been systemic at Michigan since Bo Schembechler. It seems like, we could go over game after game after game where Michigan just doesn't seem to put have that killer instinct to put the foot on the throat of their opponent when they're on the road like this. Is this really Harbaugh or being a bad coach, or is this just Harbaugh living out Michigan's return to our roots, our historical norm? And my question to Wolverine fans is, isn't this kind of who we are? This is who we are in 2021. This year, we've somehow gutted out wins in these games, and thankfully we have. But that's what drives Wolverine fans crazy, and that to me, it's just systemic of who we are as Michigan football. So the other thing, game analysis, or maybe this is now my as your therapist, Wolverine fans. I just want to call out Wolverine fans that I've heard throughout the season in classic Wolverine fan style. I've heard some fans dogging Hassan Haskins because he only gets a couple yards per carry, and dogging Cade McNamara. Look, this is just the latest in a long line of great Michigan players to get dogged by stupid Wolverine fans. Hassan Haskins is going to be the offensive MVP. He's the absolute heart and soul of this team. He's everything you want in a football player, and he deserves all the credit that he gets. And Cade McNamara has been nothing short of spectacular. And the criticisms against him, look, I understand he's not Trevor Lawrence. Cade McNamara is not Justin Fields. But you know what? He's not supposed to be. But what he is one of, if not the most efficient Michigan quarterback since Tom Brady. He's got a 6-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He's thrown 2 interceptions in 10 games against some pretty darn good defenses. I think we all should be thankful for Cade McNamara and Hassan Haskins. And, of course, in that game, where would we be without Eric All, Cade McNamara, and Hassan Haskins first and foremost. All right. Let's keep going, Wolverine fans. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the upcoming schedule. Let's talk a little bit about how, in heaven's name, how are we going to get through the next 2 weeks? All right, Wolverine fans, we've got 2 more weeks in this season. A game at Maryland that can't be overlooked. Michigan's a 2-touchdown favorite, but Maryland is a solid team. Look, Michigan has everything to play for. I think it's an 85% chance that Michigan will win the game. I don't really have a lot of confidence in Michigan covering. I think 2 touchdowns is probably about accurate. Maryland can score. Maryland has some dynamic players. If you don't know, Tua Tagovailoa's brother is their quarterback. They've got some guys that can break long plays in the passing game and in the running game. And they're a gritty, tough team. They play hard, but they have a tendency to shoot themselves in the foot. They make mistakes. They're going to be under tremendous pressure. I don't think they're going to be able to handle our pass rush and some of the blitz packages. We're going to get to their quarterback, and we're going to cause a lot of disruption. So I think it's likely that Michigan wins and enters the Ohio State game 10-1. So we've got a lot to look forward to. But again, how do we get through the next 2 weeks? Look, as I've already described, this Ohio State team has 4 to 5 or more game breakers, difference makers on offense, and I know this is the last thing that Michigan Wolverine fans want to hear, but I think barring injury, it's 90 to 95% chance that Ohio State wins the next 2 games. They're favored by 20 points against Michigan State. They're probably going to be favored by 15 to 17 points at Michigan next week. So that's the last thing I know people want to hear. Oh, so our only hope is that one of the Ohio State stars gets injured? Yeah, basically. For all intents and purposes, yeah. But injuries are part of football, and I think that's, look at Michigan this past week. If we hadn't had Eric All come back from injury and play with a high ankle sprain and be effective, I don't think we win that game at Penn State. Probably don't win. Probably should have lost anyway. Travion Henderson gets injured, if C.J. Stroud gets injured, Ohio State's a different team. When they played Nebraska, they didn't have Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson came back this week against Purdue. You saw their offense clicking on all cylinders. Garrett Wilson's one of those true difference makers, the kind of guy that is the difference between getting a first down on 3rd and 5 or not. He's a guy that makes the quarterback look good with a bad pass, but he catches it anyway. He's the guy that turns a simple wide receiver screen or a down and out into a touchdown because he just has incredible moves and incredible speed. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. So, one or two of their star offensive players gets injured. That's basically could happen against Michigan State, and that would give us an advantage when they come to Ann Arbor. But the same's true of us. It doesn't look like Blake Corum's going to play at Maryland. I don't know if he's going to play at Michigan against Ohio State. That's we're a different offense without Blake Corum. God forbid Hassan Haskins or Cade McNamara gets injured. We're in trouble too. So this is the time of season where injuries are incredibly important. And so how do we get through the next 2 weeks? Look, we need to have the perspective that if there's a 90% chance that Ohio State's going to win this game against Michigan State, there's a 90% chance they're going to win it against Michigan. If Michigan upsets Ohio State, to me, it would be every bit, if not more impressive than the 1969 victory at Michigan Stadium over Ohio State. This is how good Ohio State is. They've basically lapped everyone in the Big Ten. There's that much of a disparity between them and the rest of the Big Ten. So we need to have that perspective and just be mindful of that. If either Michigan State or Michigan is able to stay within 10 points of Ohio State, I will be incredibly impressed. And both of those teams should be very proud of themselves. And I know I can just hear some of my friends, and I can hear Wolverine, that's a loser's mentality. You're a loser. I can't believe you're such a loser. Look, you can say that all the time. You can say that all you want. It's the reality, okay? And the whole point of this podcast is to keep our feet grounded in reality and act accordingly, okay? Because all this pressure, if you're going to define this Michigan team by what they do against whether they beat Ohio State, it's just ridiculously unfair, okay? If this team wins at Maryland and loses to Ohio State, goes 10-2, it's an amazingly successful season. And I can also tell you, if you think that Jim Harbaugh, if Michigan's going to go 10-2 with losses to Michigan State and Ohio State, if you think Jim Harbaugh is going to get fired, I think you're crazy, okay? And rightfully so. I just don't know how you do that, okay? When, looking around the country at this competitive imbalance, Texas just lost at home to Kansas. They're 4-6. Florida just barely beat Samford. That's right, Samford at home. They're probably going to fire their coach, Dan Mullen. I mean, Michigan fans, Wolverine fans, get a clue, okay? This is not unique to Michigan fans. James Franklin and Penn State are 10-9 in their last 19 games. Just let that sink in for a second, okay? With all of this obsession with we have to beat Ohio State, we have to beat Ohio State. Nobody's beating Ohio State in the Big Ten. They're 10 to 14 points better than anybody, and barring injury, they're going to do it again this year. So, sorry to be the bearer of bad news. I'm the messenger. You can shoot me if you want to, but I didn't make the rules. This is formed over the past several years. I think it's a result of the 4-team college football playoff. It's a result of rule changes in college football that are much more favoring offense, and it's a fact that culturally, Michigan and Michigan fans don't want to have this wide open offense and go through the pains that it would take to have a wide open offense like Ohio State. Because, and we all know this. When you play the wide open offense that Ohio State plays with 5-star athletes, well, you win. You go to the college football playoff and you win. You win. You're competing for national championships. But when you try to play that wide open offense without 5-star athletes, well, you get something that looks like the Keystone Cops. It looks like a Laurel and Hardy movie, okay? And Michigan fans don't want that. And oh, by the way, you get you might have to go through 3-9. Do you remember Rich Rodriguez? He won 6 Big Ten games in 3 years. Okay, Wolverine fans. So